All right. What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Lincoln Nautilus. I'm excited about this thing. Lincoln has done an incredible job with the rebrand of these vehicles. Nautilus is in its second year behind me here, but it's available with two different engine options, either a 2-liter turbo or a 2.7-liter. The one we're looking at today is a 2-liter turbo. That means 250 horsepower, 280 foot-pounds of torque. Factory towing option gives you the ability to pull up to 3,500 pounds. Great mix of luxury meets style meets just amazingness. Guys, I'm excited. Let's have a peek and see what this thing's all about. Now, one of the nice things about the Lincoln lineup, now typically with luxury vehicles, you have to use that premium gas. However, you're fine using the regular 87 octane, which means you can save yourself a couple bucks at the pump. But like any performance vehicle, if you use that 89 or the 91 octane instead, you are going to get slightly better performance out of it. Pretty straightforward. In order to fill up, it's going to be on the driver's side here. We're just going to press, and this is going to open up here. And as you can see, we've got that capless system, so we're just going to slide in. You're good to go. Now, taking a look at the key fob here to start, as you can see, we've got our unlock button, our lock button, our remote start, our trunk button, as well as our horn or our panic alarm button. Now, if you ever lock yourself out of the vehicle, you do have that ability to use the side access, the remote keyless entry, but you can also pop this key out here, and as you can see, we've got a remote access key now. Sliding that back into place and flipping around, as you can see, we've got that nice embroidered Lincoln logo. In order to be able to remote start, all we're going to do is press the lock button once and then the circle button twice. So nice and quick start there, and then in order to cancel the remote start, we're just going to press this button here once. Remote start canceled. Now, opening up the liftgate on this thing, you've got a couple different options. There is the ability to do it on the key fob. There's a button right underneath here. We're going to press that in order to lift the tailgate up, or the other option is to use your feet. So one of the nice things is that it does have a foot-activated liftgate. All we're going to do, make sure that key fob's in your pocket. You got a bag full of groceries, golf clubs, whatever the case may be. Just going to slide your foot underneath and step back. And it'll open up. Let's have a quick peek inside. There we go, and look at this. There is a ton of room in this vehicle. Like I'm 6 feet tall. I can pretty comfortably get in here. So you're definitely going to be able to get your golf clubs back there for you, your partner. If you've got a foursome going on there, you can probably fit quite a bit of stuff back here. Now, looking in the back here, so this specific vehicle does have the interior protection package. Now, if you didn't get the interior protection package, you're not going to get this. There's also floor liners in the front and the rear seats. But as we look underneath here, we do have our spare tire there. It is a partial spare tire, not a full size. And just along the side here, as you can see, we've got some storage compartments as well, which is kind of neat. Dropping it down here. Last thing I'll point out, there is a spigot here, so if you ever do need to use a jerry can, we're going to slide that in first and then slide the jerry can hole into this. Now, in order to fold the back seats down in the Nautilus, one of the nice things is that it's now power. So in the back here, as you can see, we've got these little buttons here. So left versus right side. All we're going to do is press the button there. And as you can see, press and hold, and it's going to fold it down there. Let's take a look at the side of the vehicle just to see what that looks like. There we go. So as you can see, the seats down here are, throw a little bit of force there, we can get them down fairly flat there as well, which is nice. Pulling them back up, very, very simple. All we're going to do is lift, lock it back into place. It's really that simple. Now, one thing to consider, I'm 6 feet tall. What I did was, this seat is set up also for somebody who's 6 feet tall as well. So I've got still a ton of room, a couple inches in the back here, and that's not even with the seat all the way back. So that's really, really neat, knowing that if you've got some tall passengers or a tall driver, people in the back will still have a ton of room. When it comes to headspace on here, I still have about an inch or so of headspace in the back. Now, one thing to consider is that this thing does have a twin panel moonroof here. So with the shade open, if you have a taller passenger, just get them into that center seat or get them to shimmy over a little bit in order to be able to comfortably fit back here. A couple things to point out in the back seat, they are heated rear seats. In order to turn the heated rear seats on, there's a button just in the back here. So we're just gonna press that button there, and that's gonna be good for the seat here and right. There isn't a seat warmer, unfortunately, in that middle seat here. Pressing this button here, as you can see, it lifts this up. We've now got 2 USB ports, as well as a traditional cigarette lighter adapter. Just gonna push that down to lock it back into place. Other thing that I will point out in the back of the vehicle here, it does have cup holders. So for people in the back, we're just gonna slide that down. And as you can see, we've got some cup holders here. One of the other nice things about the Nautilus is that you can use the key fob in order to unlock the windows. So we're gonna use our unlock button. We're gonna press that button 3 times. On the 3rd press, we're gonna hold it. So 1, 2, 3, and hold. And the windows are going to roll down there. Now, same thing, we can use the key fob in order to roll them back up again as well. So same thing, we're going to do the same thing with the lock button now. So 1, 2, 3, and hold. And those windows are right back up again. Okay, starting off on the driver's side door. Just off to the door here, I love this wood trim, it looks really, really sharp. But we've got seat memory here. So the Lincoln Nautilus is equipped with fully power seats for the driver and the passenger side. It's also equipped with a power steering wheel. Once you've got your steering wheel set, your side view mirrors, and your seat set, all you're gonna do is press and hold either 1, 2, or 3, and all of a sudden it's going to remember your preference, which is really, really neat, especially if you have multiple drivers, you can save your individual seat settings. Moving down here now, as you can see, we've got our mirror adjusting buttons, so whatever one's highlighted is going to be the mirror that you're adjusting. Left side for the driver, right side for the passenger. Then you use the directional keypad here in order to adjust the mirror to your liking. From here, we've got our window buttons, so up and down, and then 2 other buttons here. So the one on the right-hand side, so this little guy, that's going to essentially lock the windows. So people in the back can't roll that window down. And then off to the right-hand side here, this button is going to be the one that's going to allow you to power fold those mirrors, so we can fold them in or out as necessary. Now, adjusting the seats on this thing is very straightforward. So as I mentioned, it is power driver and passenger seats. So on the driver's side, it's going to be on the left side. Passenger, it's going to be on the right side. So we've got a series of buttons here. So what we're going to do, this front one here is going to bring the seat forwards if we bring it forwards, or backwards if we push it backwards. And we can also lift the seat up and down. All we're going to do is press that stick down to lower the seat, or we can raise the entire thing in order to raise our seat up. In order to adjust our backrest here, that's going to be this knob here. So we can either bring the backrest forwards, or backwards I should say, or forwards is your preference. The last one here is going to be for our power lumbar support. So lumbar support, all we're going to do is press in and out, I should say, in order to get it to your liking. And again, as I said, once you've got this set up, once you've got your mirrors set up, as well as your steering wheel, press and hold 1, 2, or 3 in order to lock your position into place. Adjusting the steering wheel is also very straightforward. So it is a telescopic power steering wheel. So in order to be able to adjust the wheel, what we're going to do is look down here. As you can see, we've got another key directional pad. So we're just going to use that in order to adjust it. So we can bring it up, down, in, and out. It's one of the nice things about it being telescoping. Once you've got that perfect position, press and hold 1, lock it back into place. Now, a couple things to point out on the driver's side here. In order to be able to turn the fog lamps on, we're just going to press this button here. We've got the lights on or off as necessary. This next switch over here is going to be for our daytime or our nighttime running lamps. There's really only 2 settings that I want you to be concerned about. All the way to the left, which is going to turn the lights off, or all the way to the right, which is going to be auto lights. That means it's automatically going to turn the daytime or the nighttime lamps on, just depending on the time of day and the brightness outside. So what I'd say is recommended, leave it on the auto settings, let the vehicle do all the hard work for you. Moving off to the right-hand side here a little bit, we've got plus and minus buttons here. That's going to be for our instrument cluster and our screen, so we can make it lighter or darker, I should say, as necessary. A little bit further off to the right side, we've got 2 more buttons here. First one is going to be for our trunk release, so this top one here, so we can open up the trunk one more way using the button here. And the last one here is going to be for our traction control, so we can turn the traction control on or off as necessary. Now, this is going to be the screen that we're met with when we first start the vehicle up. So one of the nice things about the Nautilus is that it does have built-in navigation. So for those trips down to the States, across Canada, or even around town, it's a really, really useful feature to have. This one up here is going to be what radio station we're currently tuned to. If we're connected through our cell phone, our cell phone's going to show here. We can also add a phone here, or we can turn the heated steering wheel on or off using this button here. Jumping down now, as you can see, we've got a ton of options, so let's go through and have a little bit of fun. Starting off here, we've got our audio settings. So our audio, we can choose between different sources here. So we've got our AM, FM, Sirius, CD, or Bluetooth stereo. And if our phone was there, or another MP3 player, it would then show up here. Moving into our climate settings now. So we've got a ton of options. If we look down here, we've got a few here, but the majority of the climate options are going to be through that center console screen, so through that Sync 3 screen. The top button here, Auto, is going to let the vehicle decide what the cabin temperature should be. If we jump into menu, that's going to give us the ability to turn on max AC, our max windshield defroster, or our heated steering wheel. Off to the right-hand side here, we've now got our power button, so we can turn it on or off as necessary. Now, the nice thing is that this vehicle also does have dual zone climate control. So whether we use the button here or up here to adjust, as you can see, it's now separate from the driver and passenger, and dual is now highlighted. If you want to, you can default to the driver's side settings by just pressing that dual button again, and it changes it back over. Moving here, we've got the ability to blow the fan to the windshield, to our face, or to our feet, or auto and let the vehicle decide. From here, we've now got our air circulation button. So that's going to do one of two things. So with the button on, that's going to circulate the air within the cabin. With it off, it's going to pull air from outside and bring it in. So it's a little bit harder on your air conditioner if this isn't on, but at the same time, the air is a little bit cooler, which is kind of neat. Last one here is going to, or second last one I should say, is going to be our rear windshield defroster, or rear window defroster. And then from here, the ability to turn the air conditioning on or off. Moving down now, we've got our phone. Adding a phone to the vehicle is really, really simple. Now the process is going to be roughly the same whether you've got an Android phone or if you've got an iPhone. So I've got an iPhone here to use. What we're going to do is take a look at our Bluetooth. We're just going to make sure that our Bluetooth is on, and then we're just going to hit Add Phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Hey, so as you can see here, Lincoln Nautilus is now shown up. So we're just going to press that button there.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
And it is. So 890-820, that matches. So we're going to say yes and pair. We've got a couple other messages.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
All right, so a few other things are going to show up now. Do we want to allow contacts and favorites? Absolutely. And we're connected, so nice and simple there. Now, the last one here is going to be for 911 Assist. So 911 Assist is only available if the phone is connected to the vehicle. So we're going to turn that one on and then automatically download contacts. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Now, with your contacts downloaded, you can press the voice button on the steering wheel in order to be able to connect and make phone calls based off of whoever's in your address book. So I always recommend auto download contacts. And as you can see, we've got my recent calls, contacts, my phone list, everything is here. Now, one of the neat things, now that my phone's connected, we've got the ability to use some apps. So depending on the phone that you've got, certain apps can be mirrored directly onto the screen here. So we've got LiveX Live, which is a radio app, Spotify, etc. would all work through the center console screen here. Or for navigation, if you use the Waze app, it will show up here as well. Now, the vehicle does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Apple CarPlay, you do have to be hooked up using one of the USB ports. Android Auto is just over Bluetooth. In order to remove a cell phone from the vehicle, all we're going to do is go to Settings here, and we're going to click on Phone, View Devices, and we've got my phone here, so we're just going to click here. Now we can either disconnect or we can completely remove it. So we're just going to hit Remove, and yes. And as you can see, it's now deleted the phone. If we jump back into Phone here, phone is now deleted from the vehicle. So it's really, really straightforward. Using navigation, equally as straightforward. So with the built-in navigation, really, really simple. We're just going to hit search here, and we're going to start typing in an address wherever we want to go. So typing in the address of the dealership here. Now, one thing to note is that give it some time in between letters. You don't have to type in the full address. It will do an autocomplete for you. Once the address comes up, we're just going to press the button there. There we go, and just a second, and there we go. So two choices now. We can either save it as a favorite, or we can start the navigation.
Obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving.
Perfect.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
There we go. So nice and straightforward here. So now we've got our destination, which obviously isn't that far away. In order to be able to cancel the route, all we're going to do is press the X button here, and yes, we're going to cancel the route. There we go. Back up to controls now. Now if we jump into our menu settings, a few other options. Screen view is going to let you change the view and the way that the screen looks. It's pretty straightforward. Next up is going to be our navigation settings. Jumping into map preferences, so we can look at either 3D city models, POI icons. So that's going to be for gas stations and things like coffee shops, etc. So if you want those icons to show up on the map, you can do that here. Jumping into route preferences now, we've got a couple choices, so either the fastest, shortest, or the most eco-friendly route. We can always use HOV lanes, look at eco penalties, and here's the big one. So if you're not a fan of driving on toll roads or cars and trains, etc., hopefully you're not driving on trains. That just wouldn't be a good thing. But if you don't like to drive through tunnels, we can avoid tunnels and freeways and toll roads and things like that here. And that's essentially going to make the navigation take those things into account. Last up is going to be navigation preferences. That's going to be for prompts that you get as you're driving. So guidance prompts, we've got the voice and tones, which is going to be a voice letting you know that there's an upcoming turn, and a tone as you get closer. You can have just a voice or a tone. It's a matter of personal preference. And jumping back here, and one more time, we've now got a couple other options here. So we scroll over, set up our home and our work addresses. Really, really cool. So if we hit home, we're just going to add in our home address there and then save. So straightforward. Where having a home and work address comes into play is, let's say, you're 8-10 hours away, whatever the case may be, you're just outside exploring and you want to figure out how the heck to get home. With your address already entered and saved into the system here, you can press the voice command button on the steering wheel, say navigate home, and then it'll do just that. It'll navigate home for you. Really, really neat. Jumping into our app screen here, and as you can see, one of the apps has disappeared because that was one that was on my cell phone. So we can either add a phone in, we can find some mobile apps, or we can use SiriusXM's app here. Moving into our general settings now, we've got a ton of options here, so let's work through it. Sound is going to let us change the treble, mid-range, bass, those types of settings. Moving back, we've got our clock now. So clock is going to be in our standard 12-hour, so our AM, PM time. You can manually adjust. Left side is going to be for the hour, right side is going to be for the minute. If you prefer that military time, we can turn that on here instead and turn it off. A few other settings now. We've got our auto daylight savings time. So it's automatically going to adjust the clock if we're in spring or in the fall. So spring forward, fall backwards, it's automatically going to adjust at the hour for you. Our auto time zone update, if you're heading down to the east or the west coast, if you're driving out of your regular time zone, with this turned on, it's automatically going to adjust the time zone for you as well. So I do recommend keeping that setting on. Next up, we've got Bluetooth. So we can turn the Bluetooth off. We can add a Bluetooth device. That's either going to be our cell phone or a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player. From here, we've got our phone. So again,
search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
We would go to this section here to add a phone, or just from the bottom here and press this button instead. Let's look at some of our general settings now. So general settings, we can change our language between English, Spanish, or French, whatever your preference is there. Celsius or Fahrenheit, so we've got our preferred temperature units, and then measurements unit, so miles or kilometers. So if you're going down to the States, it would obviously make sense to be in miles instead. And that beep that we're getting here. So we can turn that beep off. All you're going to do is press that button there, and now the beep is gone. So that one, again, matter of personal preference. And a few other things here. We've got automatic system updates. You need to be connected to Wi-Fi at home in order for that to happen. And then just some basic information about sync, software licenses, or we can reset. So if you're selling your vehicle, go to reset, do a master reset, bring it back to factory defaults, and you're good to go. A couple other things here, jumping into our radio. So we've got our radio text, we can turn that on or off. The radio text is what's going to show up here when there's a song that's on. From here, we've got our 911 assist. 911 assist, as I mentioned, only works when your cell phone's connected. Navigation, we've already been through these settings here. Jumping back into, we've now got our mobile app. Same thing, phone needs to be connected for that to work. Scrolling over a screen, as you can see, we've got a ton of other options here. We've already been through, just to remind you about the general screens here, so we've been there. Automatic updates in Wi-Fi. So I do recommend keeping automatic updates on, but you do need to be connected to Wi-Fi in order for that to work. So when you're at home, you're just going to go view available networks. You're going to search, find your network, And from there, once your network is found, you're going to add it in and you're set to go. Now, what's going to happen is your vehicle software and firmware is automatically going to be updated. The only thing that won't be updated is going to be the navigation. You can either manually do that yourself, or when your vehicle's in for service, you can ask your Lincoln representative to ask you, or to, I should say, to install the updated map for you. So very, very straightforward there. Moving into our Lincoln Way app. So the vehicle is equipped with a built-in modem. So you do get 3 months up to 3 gigs of data included. That's through Bell. You need to activate it in order for it to work. But you can essentially turn your vehicle into a wireless hotspot, so you can use Wi-Fi in your vehicle. It's really, really neat. You do have to have an ongoing monthly commitment if you want to do it after that 3-month, 3 gig, but it's pretty straightforward there. Next up is going to be our vehicle settings. So we've got some basic settings here. Oh, there we go. So camera settings, door keypad. So we've got the door keypad code. So if you have your fob in your vehicle or not on you, there's a 5-digit factory number we can add in that's going to be there by default. And then we can also add in extra numbers. We can either do that through the screen here or outside on the vehicle door. Next up is going to be our display. So we've got this nice, beautiful display. It is in nighttime mode right now. We can turn the display off, press the button again in order to turn it on. We can change the background so the way that looks there. And we've now got our option for different modes. So we've got our daytime mode, there's a nighttime mode, and then there's the auto setting. So we're in, oh, would you look at that? We're in daytime mode. So switching out to nighttime mode, it's going to take a second to update there. There we go. So we've got a darker mode there. And we can do auto, so we can let the vehicle decide if we're going to be in that daytime or nighttime mode. It's a matter of personal preference there. If you prefer the lighter or the darker tones, you can set that permanently just in the display settings here. Jumping back in, 2 more settings are going to be our voice control. So voice control, we've got advanced mode and then phone confirmation. Let's start off on advanced mode. So advanced mode is currently turned off. So I want you to listen for a second here. Taking a look here, so with advanced mode off right now, so if we press the button here, tune to 97.7.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
There we go. So as you see, as you heard there, there was a little confirmation message that we got as it tuned to that other station. If we have the advanced mode on now, listen again. Tune to 94.9. So as you can see there, it's changed the station, so it's changed it to 94.9, but we didn't get that confirmation message. So I do recommend keeping the advanced mode on. You won't get as many beeps and dings and reminders and things like that. Phone confirmation, when we're making a phone call, do we want to be connected to this person? Yes. So that's your choice there. And the last one is going to be the voice command list. The voice command list is this thing right here. So if you have a preference, we can just turn that off completely. And the voice command list, when we press the voice button, will no longer show up. So that one again is a matter of personal preference. Jumping back here, 2 more left, we've got our valet mode and ambient light. So valet mode is really, really neat. With valet mode on, if you've got a valet driver, they could technically look through your screen, they could look through your saved addresses, your phone, etc. Or what we could do is we could lock it out completely. So what we're going to do is enter a 4-digit combination. Please don't use 0000, use something a bit more challenging. But now, as you can see, it's locked the vehicle out, so that nobody can use the screen until you re-enter that 4-digit PIN. With the PIN on, as you can see there, we've got full access again. Last ones I'm going to point out are going to be our ambient light. So we can set to see what ambient light comes on in the vehicle, and that's going to be in a few spots, so in the cup holders, handles, and a few other spots inside. It's a matter of preference for color there. And last one is going to be our personal profiles. So personal profiles are going to be tied to the key fob, which is really, really neat. So you can set your profile up here. Oh, let's go no. And that's going to be this center console screen here in a nutshell. Okay, next up, let's take a peek here now at the side buttons. So we've got our park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then our sport mode. Sport mode is going to give you more access over the paddle shifters you've got on the steering wheel here. And off to the right-hand side here. So as you can see, we've got our auto engine start-stop. That's the one that's going to automatically kill power to the engine when we're stopped at a light. Now, one thing to note is that that doesn't happen all the time. It's occasional, but if you just don't want it to happen at all, just press that button there in order to turn the feature off. From here, we've got our park assist. So park assist can be done a couple different ways. So we've either got parallel park or perpendicular park, or parallel park out, or we can turn it back off again there. Okay, now the park assist feature is very, very simple to use. All we're going to do, we're going to start off by pressing the button here, so this park button. That gives us the ability to look for a spot for parallel parking, perpendicular parking. We can do a parallel park out, or we can turn the system off. So we're going to try a perpendicular park right now. So we're going to look for a spot. It's going to default looking for a spot on the right-hand side, or if you want to, you can hit that left-hand side, so our turning signal is if you're going to turn left, and it'll search on our left side instead. So very straightforward there. So we're just going to follow the instructions on screen here. So it's looking for a spot. There we go, and it's found a spot, so we're just going to follow the instructions. Now you just still have to work the gas and the brake, so we're going to go reverse here, and you're going to hit a little bit of gas there. Look at that, nice and quick, nice and easy. I like that. There we go. Moving down here, we've now got our 360 camera buttons. As you can see, I am double parked right now. Please don't park like that, but it's just for the video here. And looking here, we press the button again. That's going to give us a front view. One more time is going to give us that front 180 degree view. So if you're pulling out of a spot, you want to make sure there's nobody on either side of the vehicle. You can press that button there to get to that 360 view. And one more button press in order to get rid of it completely. Next one here is going to be that beeping that we get as we start to get into an obstacle that's close behind us as we're reversing. So you can turn that beeping off or leave it on to your personal preference. Last one here is going to be for our four-way blinkers. And press that one again in order to turn it off. There we go. Moving down here a little bit, as you can see, we still do have a traditional CD player, which is kind of neat. So we can use regular CDs, and then this one here is going to be the CD eject button. And let's move down a tiny little bit here. There we go. Look at this. Tons of options now. So this is going to be our engine start stop button. Turn the engine on or off from here. To turn it on, you do need to make sure that the brake is on in order for that to work. So your foot's got to be on the brake. From here, press that button in order to turn the audio off. We can press the button again to turn it on. We can turn the volume up or down using the rocker here. We can seek between stations, or you can change, if you've got a phone connected, you can change between songs here. You can manually tune using this button here. You can tune using the steering wheel. It's really a matter of personal preference there. Moving down now, we've got our fan control. So this is going to be for the cabin air. So we've got our driver's side, passenger side, so dual zone climate control. Moving down a bit more here, we can turn it off, keep it on. We can have our AC on or off. This button here is going to go to the windshield. This is going to go to the rear window. This is going to be our air conditioning, max air conditioning, our air circulation button. Now, a couple other things to point out. As I mentioned, we do have dual zone climate control. So I want you to see here, as I adjust it for the passenger side, dual has come on. Again, to get rid of the dual zone climate control, we can just press that dual button and it'll default both sides to the driver's setting. We've got our cooled and our heated front seats. One button press to turn it on full, and it comes on nice and quick. Ooh, that's nice and chilly. And then we've got our heated seats here. Moving down a tiny bit more. There we go. So we've got our little console thing here. So we push that forward. We're going to push and lock it into place here. And we've got a wireless charging pad here, as well as a USB port. So we can just kind of make it out from there. And moving down a tiny little bit more, we do have our cup holders. There are two buttons that I forgot. Now, in order to close this thing, it's not a pull. Please don't pull it. You're going to break this. We're just going to push it up in order for it to slide back into place. Two other buttons on the right-hand side here that I didn't point out are going to be our auto hold. Auto hold with this on, it's automatically, when we're stopped at a light, you can take your foot off the brake and the vehicle won't move. It's a really, really cool feature the first time you try it. And even, well, not just the first time, every time you use it, it's a really, really great feature. Last one here is going to be our glove compartment button. So we're just going to press that in order to open up the glove box here. So pressing down, and then we're just going to manually lift it back up. Next up, looking up above us here, we've got a couple things. So first thing to point out is going to be our sunglasses holder here. Pushing that back up, we've now got a series of buttons. So on the left-hand side here, we've got our driver's side cabin light. Far right side is going to be our passenger side light. This here is going to turn on all the lights in the front and the back. This button here is going to be the button that decides whether or not the lights come on when the doors are open. So it's a matter of personal preference there. These next ones here are going to be for the shade. So this thing does have a twin panel sunroof. So if we press the shade away button, so it opens it up about halfway, pressing that button again. It's going to open it up the rest of the way there. So back to the front here, we've now got 3 buttons here that we can see. So the one away is going to close the sunroof. This one here is going to pop it up just a little bit. So as you can see, just a little bit of a pop up. And then we press the away button here in order to open the sunroof up. Look at that, it's just gorgeous. Tons of space up above us there. And then same thing, we're just going to press the button there in order to close it back up. Few other things that I'm going to point out. Just above the driver's side here, we've got 3 little buttons. Those are going to be for our programmable garage door opener. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can program the codes using these buttons here. 2 other ones I'm going to point out are these guys here. So it's a misconception. It's not actually a microphone here. These are proximity sensors. Where those come into play is if the vehicle's locked and the windows are rolled down, if somebody reaches in, the alarm is going to sound. So it's a really, really neat feature that Lincoln has included in the vehicle here. Beautiful. Next up here, we're going to take a look at this steering wheel. But firstly, let me just point out, look at this dash. I love the instrument cluster here, just how beautiful it is. It's fully digital. It looks fantastic. All right, so a few things to point out from the get-go. We've got our, at the top here, plus and minus buttons. So these are going to be our gear shifts. So we can select what gear we're in by pressing the plus or minus side here. And let's start off at let's actually go for our sticks first here. So off to the left-hand side there, as you see, there's a little button just on the tip of this one here. So this is going to be for our lane keeping system. So we can choose to keep the lane keeping system on. It's a matter of personal preference there. So we know that the system's on when a few things happen. So with the button press, you see how we've got the lanes appear or disappear here. That's how we know the lane keeping system's on. So one button press there, so we've got our high beams, pull in and out. One thing to note about the Nautilus is that it does have the ability for auto high beams as well. Off to the right hand side here, we've got the amount of fluid that's going to be dispensed using this knob here. And then in order to get the windshield wiper fluid going, we're going to pull in towards us for the front windshields. There we go. And we're going to push away in order to get the back windshield. Now, one thing to point out is that right on the very end of it, the tip here, we're going to use this one here in order to use our rear windshield wiper. Now moving down, let's take a peek at all of the buttons on this thing here. So we're going to start off here, which is going to give us the adaptive cruise capability. So as you can see here, we've got the adaptive cruise on or off. So we know that it's on when this has happened here, or we can turn it off. So there's another one to point out here. So see these lanes here? So that's going to determine how close or far away you are from the vehicle that's in front of you. This one here is going to turn the lane centering system on. So the button on the end here is your lane keeping. The button here is the lane centering. So the keeping essentially is going to shake the steering wheel if you're starting to veer over without signaling, whereas this button here is actually going to pull you back in and recenter you in your lane. Adaptive cruise control is very straightforward. Once the system's on, you're up to the speed that you want to go. You're just going to press the set button. Once you've set, you can now either increase or decrease by 1 kilometer or mile per hour just by pressing the buttons here. We can cancel cruise control or we can turn it off. Now, one thing to note, this is adaptive cruise control. So one of the very nice things is that if the vehicle in front of you slows down, yours is automatically going to slow down as well. If they get out of the way or pull you back up to speed, yours is automatically going to pull you back up to that speed. So it's really, really neat. Off to the right-hand side here. So these buttons, we've got our phone either hang up or we can answer if we've got an incoming phone call. We've got our display options here now. So display options, we've got, as you see here, we can look at our different gauges. We're going to use this up and down here in order to move between our gauges. Or our screen, I should say, and then press and hold. We're going to press this button in order to select the screen here. back button here. So whenever we need to go back, we're just going to press this button here, and that's going to get us back to this home screen. Now, if we go up and down, as you can see, we've got a few different options. We've got our tire pressure here, fuel economy, our trip 1, trip 2, etc. So in order to reset our trip counter, all we're going to do is press and hold this button here, and that's going to reset it for us. Next up is going to be our audio sources, so we can choose between AM, FM, Sirius XM, etc. Or if our phone was connected or an MP3 player, that would show up here. We've got two other buttons down here, so this one is going to be for our navigation. So we can either navigate home, previous destinations, rather than looking at the screen off to the right side. Press it again to make it go away. And the last one here is going to be for some added settings. So let's scroll up just a tiny little bit so we can work through those settings here. So we've got our drive control settings, which are going to be handling in drive or sport mode, or performance in sport mode. Driver assistance gives us our blind spot indicators. So blind spot indicators are going to be these little guys. So that's going to highlight orange when somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Cross traffic alert, if there's a vehicle or a pedestrian that's coming perpendicular from us, so either from the left side or the right side, it's going to alert us and let us know that there's somebody there. Cruise control, you've got two options. As a default, it's going to be set up for adaptive cruise control, or you can switch to your regular cruise control if you have that preference. Driver alert is tied into the lane keeping system. So the lane keeping system, we've got three different modes, either the alert, which is the steering wheel shake, the aid, which is going to recenter us and pull us back into our lane, or both the alert and the pull. So it's a matter of preference there. There's an intensity for the steering wheel shake. So that's either going to be a high, a medium, or a low shake. Moving back here, we've got pre-collision assist. So pre-collision assist, we can turn that off completely if we want to, but I recommend keeping it on. And the reason why is because of the automatic braking and the evasive steering. So if the vehicle recognizes that there's a potential collision, it's going to pre-charge the brakes for you. If you don't respond, automatic braking means it's automatically going to brake the vehicle to avoid a collision. If for whatever reason it can't avoid the collision, evasive steering is then going to take over and it's going to get you out of the way of a potential collision. So I do recommend to keep those ones on. It's a general safety thing. From here, we've got the ability to show miles and kilometers per hour. Jumping into vehicles, so we've got some lightings here. So auto high beams, as I was mentioning, we can pull this stick in order to turn the high beams on, or what I'd recommend, keep auto high beams on, because what's going to happen is it's automatically going to turn the high beams on or off for you as necessary. So if you're driving in a rural road, it's automatically going to bring them on, or it's going to turn them off as needed. So really, really recommend that one. Auto lamp delay is when the vehicle's locked. How long do the lights stay on for? Welcome lighting is going to be a light that's going to be shown on the outside of the vehicle as you approach. So the Lincoln logo is going to be on the driver and passenger side. It's really, really cool when that lights up at nighttime. Our oil life, if we do an oil change, we can reset it here. Moving down, we've got our wipers. So our courtesy wipe, when the vehicle is first on, it'll courtesy wipe for you. I recommend leaving that one off. Next one is going to be our rain sensing wipers. So yeah, can we control the wipers using this knob here? Absolutely. Or you can just let the vehicle do it for you and automatically adjust as necessary. Moving in here, we've got our alarm now. So we've got all sensors or perimeter sensors asking on exit. So everything is currently active. So outside sensors and our inside ones, we can turn them on or off as we prefer. The auto engine off, if you really, really despise that setting, we can turn it off here instead of using the button that's up here instead. Moving down, we've got our easy entry exit, which means that we've got our key fob on us. We don't have to hit the lock or the unlock button there. Our locks now, so we can either do an auto unlock, feedback on there. The big one is going to be our remote unlock. So remote unlock, what happens when the door is remote unlocked from the fob? Is it all doors or just the driver door that gets unlocked? Switch inhibit has to do with the key fob. If the fob is on you and you've locked your vehicle with the vehicle on, it's going to essentially lock the vehicle out. From here, we've got our mirrors. So auto fold mirrors when the vehicle's locked. Power liftgate, we can either enable or disable the switch on the outside. And then what happens with a remote start? So very bottom here, we can turn the remote start off completely. We can have climate control on, so either auto or a last setting. With it on, that means it's automatically going to, with auto, it's going to automatically let the vehicle determine what the temperature should be. Last setting is exactly that. It's when the vehicle was last turned off, what did you have it set to? Seats and wheel, so are our seats going to turn on automatically, so those heated or cooled seats as well? And how long does the auto start last for? Is it going to last for 5, 10, or 15 minutes when we remote start? Last up is going to be our windows, so we can either remote open or close using the key fob here, which I had shown you earlier. And lastly is going to be the My Key. So My Key gives us the ability to set certain limitations on the vehicle. So if we want to have it so that when our key fob's lent out to somebody, it can only go a maximum speed, we can absolutely have it set up like that. And that's going to be our settings here in a nutshell. Last up here is we're going to take this thing for a spin and have a little bit of fun. All right, folks. Let's take this puppy for a spin. I'm excited. Like, Lincoln has come a very, very long way. They used to appeal to an older demographic. Like, there's just no lie about that. It's just the way it was. But they've really started to change the look of this thing, change the feel, and really rebrand it. So it's really becoming a force to reckon with in that luxury market, especially for a younger demographic. Go. So comfortable. That's one thing that you'll notice about this thing right from the get-go. Like, just one of the big differences between that Ford versus Lincoln lineup. Like, don't get me wrong, Ford vehicles, they're nice, they're luxurious. But Lincoln vehicle, they're just a step above, and it's so nice. And quiet. Like, you think hopping into new vehicles, like, it better be quiet, but this ride is really, really quiet. And one of the nice things is that the vehicle, it is equipped with speed sign recognition. So if we look there, we can see it'll show us whatever the active speed limit is for the area. And there we go. Tons of power when you need it, which is really, really nice. Now, one of the cool things about adaptive cruise control, the system, you can use it in residential areas. It doesn't just have to be when you're driving on the highway. It really is a matter of personal preference there, though. Not everybody's comfortable using cruise control on city streets, but it's ultimately your call, especially the adaptive side of it, because it's auto start stop. So it's automatic, or stop and go, I should say. So if the vehicle in front of you comes to a complete stop, yours is going to come to a complete stop. If they speed up or get out of the way, yours is going to speed up to whatever your speed is currently set at. So it's a really, really neat system there. I do have the lane keeping system activated right now. Having said that, I'm not going fast enough for the system to actually be turned on. So once I get on the highway, I'm going to use that. I'll use that system for sure. We've got our blind spot indicator system on the right side there, as you saw. Oh, there's somebody on the right-hand side of me, which is why that's highlighting there. Whew. Plenty of power. 250, and that's it. Like, if you're the type of driver where you don't need to be the fastest, like, the 2-liter engine is a great choice. The 2.7 is really, if you're the type of person where you like to go fast. Because it does. It's got a heck of a lot more kick in comparison. But even this thing, like a 2-liter turbo, 250 horsepower, like, if I'd say for 99% of drivers, that's going to be more than enough. And even going over bumps, like, you can feel them, but it's not like you can feel them so much that you're like, oh, I'm going over bumps. It's just, it's a very calm and very quiet ride. And one of the neat things about the Nautilus is that it does have the option to have a 22-way power seat. So it's essentially a massage chair seat. So it's a matter of obviously personal preference there if you'd want a massage chair seat or not. Just get over in this lane here just to make it easier. Yeah, so it's a matter of preference whether or not you'd want that 22-way power seat, but it's a really nice feature. Where that really comes into play though is if you're going on longer drives. It's really good for the lower back and then for your hamstrings. Really the idea there is just to make sure that you've got, you know, you're riding in comfort, you're riding in style kind of as you go. But it's nice. It is very nice. Looking here, let's turn those cooled seats on a little bit. See how long that takes to come into play. Now, one thing to note, the auto start stop. So that has come in, that's kicked on. So the engine technically is off right now. If you move the steering wheel, take your foot off the brake, etc., it's automatically going to turn the vehicle back on. One other thing to point out, that auto hold button here. So auto hold is currently turned on. So if I take my foot off the brake now, I should say. So as you see there, we've got that auto hold button and the auto start stop. So both systems are simultaneously running. So auto hold, as you can see there, I don't know if you can, my foot's off the brake. Foot's off the brake completely and I'm not moving. So it's a really neat feature that Lincoln vehicles have, is that ability for you to stay still and be able to give your feet a little bit of a rest without you having to worry that the vehicle's going to kind of take off on you. Nice. The trim in here is nice. So the interior that we're looking at right now is the ebony interior. So ebony interior, it's got this like wood finish on it, which is really neat. There is the option to get more of like a metallic finish here in like certain areas as well. And then there are a few different interior choices. It's ultimately going to come down to a personal preference. Do you like light seats? Do you like dark seats? One thing I will say is light seats, they look really nice in this vehicle. Like I had a customer just pick up one that's ceramic pearl with that sandstone interior today, and it looks really nice. So play around, build and price, take a look, see what preferences you've got there. See what choices, I should say, you've got there. It's ultimately a matter of personal preference. But change things up. It's never a bad thing. Okay, and as always, let's take her out on the highway and see how she does. Whew, quite a few people. All right. Just gonna kind of hang back here as people go. That's nice. The highways are nice and slow today as well. Okay, we've got a couple trucks, so I'm gonna have to speed up a bit. There we go. Wow. All right, this thing's got some gumption. All right. That was surprising. Oh, that's amazing. A little bit more pickup than I was thinking there. Very nice, very nice. So the lane keeping system's activated. I'm just gonna very cool. So slightly move over and it automatically just recentered me, pulled me right back into my lane again. Such a great feature. Even at highway, like it's so quiet in here. Very neat, very neat. Oh, that feels great. And the handling of it, like it's fantastic. I'm in my regular drive mode right now and it is nice. Very cool. Oh, it feels like it just feels really solid, like it's really well built. Like not surprising coming from Lincoln, but I love the new styling of these. I love the styling of it. I love the feel of it. So if you're in that luxury market, Lincoln vehicles, like depending on your needs, like, well, regardless of your needs, outside of trucks, I should say. Unfortunately, the truck doesn't exist anymore in the Lincoln lineup. But if you're looking for a 5-seater, a 7-seater, something a little bit bigger, you've got the Navigator. There's a step down, the Aviator. Then we've got this as a 5-seater. There's a ton of options. And it does. It's got that pick up and go just when you need it. Turbo engine is nice. And guys, this is only the 2-liter. Like the 2.7 would literally be a step above. That's going to be the next one, I think. The 2.7 liter. It's going to happen. One thing I didn't point out, the headrest. So adjusting the headrest is very, very simple. We can click it forward in order to be able to adjust it. So click it forward, click it backwards. Really, really simple there. Even going over all of these bumps, like you don't feel it. It's really, really neat. That just makes me excited to get into the Aviator or the Navigator, because they've also got active air suspension as well. And that air suspension, whew, it's a whole other beast. I'm still super surprised at how quiet the cabin is. Like, especially, like I've driven, well, a number of Ford vehicles at this point, and just to hear the difference of what it's like in the Ford versus the Lincoln lineup. But again, it's the difference of the base vehicles versus the luxury vehicles. It's a matter of what's your personal preference. The big one would be what's your budget as well. That's absolutely something to take into account when you're buying a vehicle. There we go. That was the review and the full walk around for the 2020 Lincoln Nautilus. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. There's a ton of videos that I've got planned over the next couple months. How to negotiate with a car dealer, how to get the best possible deal, what happens with trade-ins, how does that even work? Make sure that you subscribe below so that you know when those videos come out. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'm very, very open to suggestions you might have for the channel, recommendations, all that fun stuff. But I hope you enjoyed it, and until I see you next time, hope you enjoy. Stay safe. Ah, this is really cool. Like, literally, my butt is so cold right now. This is really neat. I like it. I like the dash, the trim, every way that they've got this. It's really, really cool. You guys still here? Take it easy.